Did you know that one of the greatest military leaders in history was completely helpless when it came to love? Napoleon Bonaparte, the man who conquered empires and changed the borders of Europe, lost his virginity only on his fourth attempt in a Parisian brothel. But what few people know is that his lover and later wife Josephine used a mysterious ZIG-ZAG technique in bed that thrilled him so much that he wrote passionate letters to her even after they divorced. Today, my dear friends, I'm taking you on a journey through one of the most intriguing love stories in world history, a story of passion, power, and intimate secrets that influenced a man who led his army across half of Europe but couldn't control his heart. Stay until the end to discover what lies behind this mysterious method that drove one of the most powerful men in history crazy and how it shaped the destiny of Europe. Napoleon before Josephine. Napoleon Bonaparte was not a typical seducer of his time. Born on August 15, 1769 in Corsica, he grew up in a relatively poor family of lower nobility. Short, stocky, untidy, and often unkempt, he could hardly be called an ideal lover. His physical appearance was far from the ideals of French aristocracy at the time. Standing only 168 centimeters tall, with long greasy hair, often dressed messily and with strange habits, Napoleon was not the type of man who would attract the attention of high society ladies. His biographers often note that he rarely bathed, preferring the smell of gunpowder and sweat to the fragrant waters that were popular among the aristocracy. As a student at military school, peers teased him for his Corsican accent and introversion. Instead of socializing with peers, Napoleon spent nights reading books about great military leaders like Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar. Even then, he dreamed that one day his name would be inscribed in the annals of history. His early romantic relationships were disastrous. It is said that his first love was a young girl from the neighborhood in Corsica who rejected him when he awkwardly expressed his feelings. In Paris, as a young officer, he tried to win the hearts of aristocratic women but was mostly ridiculed for his provincial origins and lack of manners. In 1788, at 19, Napoleon reportedly visited a Parisian brothel for the first time. According to historical sources, he was so nervous that he fled before anything happened. It took him 3 more attempts to finally lose his virginity, which was unusually late for a young man of his era. This inexperience in matters of love followed him for a long time, even when he began to gain military fame. Josephine before Napoleon. And then Josephine entered his life. Born as Marie-Joseph Rose Tasha de la Pagerie on June 23, 1763 in Martinique, Josephine had a completely different childhood from Napoleon's. She grew up on a sugar cane plantation, surrounded by tropical beauty and the luxury of colonial aristocracy. At 16, she was sent to France to be educated and married. Her first husband was Viscount Alexandre de Beauharnais, with whom she had 2 children, Eugene and Hortense. That marriage was not out of love, as she herself admitted. Her father forced her to marry the Viscount. Alexandre was known for his love affairs and often publicly humiliated Josephine. After several years of marriage, they separated, although they were never officially divorced. Josephine was known for her exceptional beauty and charm. She had dark hair, sparkling eyes, and graceful posture. Her smile, according to contemporary records, was infectious, and her conversational ability unmatched. However, her teeth were in poor condition due to excessive consumption of sweets, which was a common occurrence at that time. Because of this, Josephine learned to smile while concealing her mouth with a fan or hand, which was considered a very seductive gesture. Her fate drastically changed when the French Revolution broke out in 1789. At first, her husband Alexandre supported the revolution and even became president of the National Assembly. However, during the Reign of Terror, when many aristocrats ended up on the guillotine, Alexandre was arrested and later executed. Josephine was also arrested and imprisoned in the infamous Les Carmes prison, where she awaited her fate. She was saved at the last moment when Robespierre, the leader of the revolution, was overthrown on July 27, 1794. After leaving prison, Josephine found herself in a difficult financial situation. As the widow of an aristocrat, she lost most of her property and had to care for her children. However, her social skills helped her return to society. She became known for her salons, where artists, politicians, and soldiers gathered. Her reputation as an easy woman who loved luxury and wealth was partly a consequence of the difficult situation she found herself in after the revolution. She had to survive somehow. First meeting and beginning of relationship. After surviving the revolution, Josephine returned to the Paris social scene. There she met Paul Barras, a high military commander and one of the most powerful men in the Directory, the new French government established after the revolution. Barras was known for his dissolute lifestyle, extravagant parties, and numerous love affairs. According to some historical sources, Barras was intimate with Josephine before introducing her to Napoleon. Their relationship was no secret in Parisian social circles. Barras was a mentor to young Napoleon, who was then a promising young general after his success in the siege of Toulon in 1793. It was even whispered that Josephine begged Barras to give young Napoleon his first important military command in the campaign in Italy, which would mean she already had some plans for him. Josephine and Napoleon met for the first time at one of Barras's parties in October 1795. Napoleon was 26 at the time, and Josephine was 32. The 6-year difference was significant for that era, especially since women were usually younger than their partners. At first glance, they looked like the most unusual couple in Paris. He, a short, untidy general of Corsican origin, she, an elegant, sophisticated lady from high society. However, something happened between them that evening. According to Napoleon's records, he was enchanted by her elegance, charm, and experience. Unlike other women he met, Josephine didn't look down on him. On the contrary, she showed great interest in his military campaigns and ambitions. Josephine was skilled in love games. She presented herself as his great admirer, listened carefully to his plans for conquering Italy, admired his intelligence and vision. Napoleon, naive and inexperienced in matters of love, completely believed her and fell head over heels in love. This was the first time someone seemed so interested in him as a person, not just for his rising military career. Their romance was quick and intense. After just a few weeks of acquaintance, Napoleon proposed to Josephine. At first, she was surprised by his speed. She didn't expect marriage, but perhaps a short affair. However, she realized that marriage to an ambitious general could be a good move for her and her children. She agreed to the engagement in January 1796. Intimate life and the ZIG-ZAG technique. After their first night together in 1795, Napoleon wrote her a passionate letter at 7 o'clock in the morning. I awoke full of you. The memory of yesterday's intoxicating evening gave no rest to my senses. Sweet and incomparable Josephine. From your lips and heart I feel a flame that burns me. I'll see you in 3 hours. Until then, mio dolce amore, I send you 1,000 kisses, but don't kiss me, for your kisses have set my soul on fire. This letter reveals the depth of Napoleon's infatuation and passion. For a man known for his practicality and rationality in military matters, his letters to Josephine reveal a completely different side, romantic, passionate, almost poetic. Over the next few years, he wrote her hundreds of love letters, many of which have been preserved to this day. But what was particularly interesting in their relationship was Josephine's famous ZIG-ZAG technique that drove Napoleon crazy in bed. This mysterious method of satisfaction was so effective that the French military commander often remained bewildered and longed for his beloved in the bedroom even after their divorce. What exactly was this famous ZIG-ZAG technique? According to British intimacy expert Tracy Cox, this method was probably related to oral sex. Cox explains, when you use your tongue in a zigzag manner, it means you're stimulating all areas of the clitoris, instead of focusing on just one point. However, this method could also be applied in reverse, where Josephine might have moved her tongue across the most sensitive part of the male organ, particularly targeting the frenulum. Josephine was an experienced lover who knew how to please a man. Unlike many women of that era, who were taught to be passive in bed, Josephine actively enjoyed intimate relationships and wasn't shy about taking initiative. This was revolutionary for Napoleon, who was used to brothels and prostitutes where women pretended pleasure. Many historians believe that Josephine's sexual skill was one of the main reasons why Napoleon remained so attached to her, even when he knew about her numerous affairs. They say he was so enchanted by her abilities in bed that he was willing to forgive her almost anything. Besides the zigzag technique, Josephine allegedly used other methods to keep Napoleon's attention. She was known for loving to use scents and essential oils. Her bedroom always smelled of roses and jasmine. She also loved wearing silk underwear, which at that time was extremely luxurious and rare. Napoleon later, during his war campaigns, often asked her to send him a handkerchief soaked in her perfume. Marriage and crisis. Their wedding was modest and held on March 9, 1796, just 2 days before Napoleon left to conquer Italy. The ceremony was civil, without the presence of Napoleon's family, who did not approve of the marriage to an older widow. Josephine wore a simple white dress and a wreath of roses in her hair at the wedding. Napoleon was in his military uniform. With this marriage, Josephine later became the first Empress of France. However, their marriage was problematic from the very beginning. While Napoleon was on the campaign in Italy, Josephine remained in Paris, where she continued her social life. There is evidence that she had several affairs during Napoleon's absence, including a relationship with the handsome hussar officer Hippolyte Charles. Napoleon was madly in love and wrote her letters almost every day, begging her to join him in Italy. However, Josephine delayed the journey for months, excusing herself with illness or obligations in Paris. When she finally arrived in Italy, Napoleon had already heard rumors about her affairs. Nevertheless, he was so in love that he forgave her everything as soon as he saw her. Over the next few years, their relationship went through many ups and downs. Napoleon was becoming more powerful and famous, while Josephine tried to adapt to the role of wife of the most powerful man in France. When Napoleon became first consul in 1799, and later emperor in 1804, Josephine had to learn the strict court protocol. One of the biggest problems in their marriage was the fact that Josephine could not bear Napoleon a child. Although she had 2 children from her first marriage, Eugene and Hortense, whom Napoleon loved very much, at 40 she was too old to have more children. Napoleon, as emperor, desperately needed an heir to secure his dynasty. Ironically, there were rumors that Napoleon was infertile. He allegedly couldn't make a child with his first lover, Désirée Clary, nor with several other women with whom he had affairs. On the other hand, Josephine already had 2 children, which proved her fertility. However, in the society of that time, the blame for the lack of an heir always fell on the woman. Divorce and final years. As the years passed and no heir appeared, the political pressure on Napoleon to divorce Josephine and marry a younger princess who could give him a child became stronger. His advisors, especially his foreign minister Talleyrand, constantly convinced him that divorce was necessary for the good of the empire. Napoleon long rejected this idea. Despite Josephine's affairs and problems in marriage, he still harbored deep feelings for her. However, as a pragmatic ruler, he eventually had to put the interests of the state before personal feelings. Finally, on December 16, 1809, Napoleon informed Josephine of his decision to divorce. According to testimonies, both cried during that conversation. Josephine was heartbroken, although she knew it was inevitable. The formal divorce was completed 15 days later in a solemn ceremony. Despite the divorce, Napoleon was generous to Josephine. He gave her the title of Empress, which she retained even after the divorce, the Malmaison Palace, and an annual pension of 3 million francs. He also insisted that she maintain a high position at court. A year later, on April 2, 1810, Napoleon married Marie-Louise, the 18-year-old daughter of the Austrian emperor. This marriage was purely political. Napoleon wanted an alliance with Austria and an heir for his empire. On March 20, 1811, Marie-Louise gave birth to a son, who received the title King of Rome. Although he now had a new wife and the son he so desired, Napoleon never stopped loving Josephine. He continued to visit her regularly at Malmaison and correspond with her. Allegedly, the last words he uttered on his deathbed were, "France, Army, Head of the Army, Josephine." Josephine did not live long after the divorce. She died on May 29, 1814, of pneumonia at her Malmaison palace. Ironically, her daughter Hortense married Napoleon's brother Louis and gave birth to a son who would later become Napoleon III, Emperor of France. Thus, Josephine's, not Napoleon's bloodline, continued the French imperial dynasty. The story of Napoleon and Josephine remains one of the most interesting love stories in history. Their passion, jealousy, betrayals, and finally parting, but also lasting respect, show the complexity of human relationships, regardless of power and position. Outro, 1901 to 2030. And that's it, friends. Who would have thought that behind great empires and historical conquests lie such private stories? Napoleon, one of the most powerful men in history, was helpless before the charms of his Josephine and her mysterious zigzag technique. This story teaches us that even the greatest military leaders and rulers are first and foremost people, with all their weaknesses, desires, and passions. Perhaps it is precisely this humanity that makes historical figures so fascinating. They are simultaneously heroes and ordinary mortals, driven not only by ambition and desire for power, but also by love and passion. If you like this video about Napoleon and Josephine, leave a like and share it with friends who enjoy such historical stories. Also, I'm very interested in what you think about this historical love story. Was Napoleon's infatuation sincere, or was Josephine just a skilled manipulator? Was their love real, or just a political marriage? Write in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell to be the first to learn about new interesting historical stories we're preparing for you. Maybe in the future, we'll cover the love lives of other great historical figures, perhaps Cleopatra and Mark Antony, or maybe Catherine the Great and her numerous lovers. Let me know what you'd like to see in the next video. Thank you for watching and for exploring history with me. See you in the next video.